All right, what's up, fight fans? Ryan Jarrell here with Garrett Kerman, and UFC 272 is officially in the books. Colby Covington really just looked dominant, beating Jorge Masvidal in the main event, gets the UD win here at UFC 272. And this is our recap show. We're going to do this a little bit more moving forward. Garrett, great night of fights. How did you like it all?
Oh, that was great. I mean, top to bottom, we had a ton of finishes. Even in those decision, wins for some of those fighters, those were great fights. Like the Colby fight, the Edson Barbosa and Bryce Mitchell. I mean, it was star-studded throughout, action-packed. I loved it. I thought it delivered on all levels. Something that I thought it would. It lived up to the hype.
Yeah, no, for sure. And before we dive into all of this, I want to start with the co-main event, the RDA Moicano fight. Do you think that should have been stopped? Like, Moicano was busted up pretty bad. Did the ref not do his job and step in and call this early enough, or do you feel like they should have just let him continue to fight? Which ultimately ended up in a 5-round UD.
I don't know. It's hard to say because Moicano was not going to give up, and maybe you could have stopped him from, being that tough, being that hard-headed to just giving up, because the man's just not going to go down. He's tough as nails. So sometimes the ref has to step in and stop it from getting any worse. So I wouldn't be all that if they went and stopped it earlier. Because at the end of the day, these guys are warriors, and they want to go in there, and they're gonna leave it all out there. They don't want the fight to get stopped. So yeah, and I think it could have gotten stopped earlier though.
Yeah, it definitely could have, but a huge win for RDA in the co-main event. Interesting to see, what might be next for him. Maybe that matchup with Fiziev, if they can rebook that. But look, this was Colby Covington's night. I told you before, I just don't think that this guy gets enough credit, which is crazy to me because he fought the number one pound for pound fighter, Kamaru Usman, tooth and nail for 2 fights. It could have gone either way in that second fight. Heck, even the first fight, you can make an argument that Covington was up until he was clipped in, and the ref stepped in and stopped it. But he wasn't stopped. He was still fighting, broken jaw or not. Colby Covington is not even ranked in the top 15 pound for pound fighters in the UFC right now. It's absolutely criminal that this is the case. I feel like he's the most underrated fighter on the whole roster. He's so good. Forget about his shtick and all the stuff that he says. And I know that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And rightfully so. He can kind of cross some lines from time to time. But if you just look at his skill set, this guy is such a good fighter. The third fight with Usman, it's just an inevitability. It's going to happen. They have to fight. The only hiccup would be if he were to fight another guy that I feel like could be a champion, and that's Chimaev. But if I'm the UFC matchmakers, I'm not doing that. I would put Chimaev, if he beats Burns next, which I imagine he will. You match him up with Usman immediately. You make that fight. So whoever wins, you can have Colby fight the winner. That's what I would do, because nobody outside of Usman and Chimaev at 170 is gonna mess with Colby. I'm telling you, he's that good. And I think that this statement win over Jorge Masvidal just was kind of like, I don't want to say his coming out party, because like he's been out for a while now. The hardcores know how good he is, but this just kind of was the exclamation point as to how legitimate this guy is. He dominated this fight against Masvidal, and it wasn't close.
No, not at all. I mean, from the beginning to the very end, it was just the same. The pace, the pressure, the cardio, the wrestling, the grinding, just staying in his face, coming forward, not letting Jorge breathe any moment of that fight. It was exhausting even for me to just watch. It was just like, he just wouldn't let him, get any space, get any type of offense off. It was just an incredible performance. eye-opening performance for a lot of people that really didn't believe in him. I feel like like his shtick, like you say, kind of overdoes his abilities, and people just overlooks him because of that. Maybe if he was more on the humble side and just worked on his abilities, people would see his abilities versus his personality. But the dude's a stud. He, like I said, I've stated this before. He's the 1B to Kamaru Usman's 1A. I mean, he's neck and neck with him. The guy's fought, Usman to the bitter brink in 2 fights, like you said, and he's one of the best in the world. And I think his personality is what really, brings his ranking down in the top 15, which really doesn't make any sense because. But the thing is with that top 15, it's more of a personality competition, how much they like this person. Oh, you're the good, but we kind of like you a little bit better, so we're going to bump you up more than, some of the other fighters. And that's not the way it should be, but unfortunately that's, how some of these rankings work. But as far as what's next for Colby, I feel like that Dustin fight, that money fight against Dustin is the way to go for right now, because Colby's not going to fight Kamaru Usman anytime soon because he just fought him and lost. But I feel like that is a good fight for him because he's going to look good. His stock's going to go up even more. There's going to be bad blood there, more talking, more yapping, more money to be made. And like you said, Chimaev versus Burns. Burns, if Burns loses, Chimaev goes all the way to the top because Usman's beating everybody else in the top 5. So I feel like that's the best way. Colby versus Dustin. Colby looks good against Dustin. Chimaev versus Usman. If Usman beats Chimaev, then you set up that Colby versus Usman 3 matchup.
So how do you think Colby and Poirier plays out? Because as I was saying earlier, I think it's criminal that Colby isn't in the top 15 pound for pound for the UFC. He fought the number 1 guy tooth and nail. It was razor thin. Both fights, basically should have went the distance, and he's not in the top 15. Dustin Poirier is in the pound for pound top 15. For my money, Colby Covington, Dustin Poirier is a wash. Like Colby's running through Dustin. Like, I think it's even more lopsided than Masvidal. I think Colby wins even more dominantly if he doesn't finish him. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think Dustin really stands a chance. If Jorge didn't have, the puncher's chance, I don't think Dustin has a puncher's chance. They're both inept in their defensive wrestling, as we've seen. Neither one of them two are going to be able to, Dustin's not going to be able to defend takedowns just like Jorge wasn't able to. So I feel like it's going to be more of the same. The pace, the pressure, the grappling, it's just good. But the thing is, I think Colby could finish Dustin, to be honest with you.
And I agree. And don't get it twisted. Like, you see my Colby Covington T-shirt right above my shoulder right there. I am a Colby Covington fan, but I'm also a Dustin Poirier fan. I don't want to see Dustin Poirier get mollywopped by someone. But I'm telling you right now, if I'm just going to look at it objectively, Colby Covington is going to run through Dustin Poirier. I wholeheartedly believe that. So if that's what the UFC does next, sign me up. It's going to get a lot of views. People want to see this. Anytime that there's any personal conflict with fighters, people are going to tune in. This fight card, UFC 272, I believe it was the number 14th all-time as far as pay-per-view numbers, that the UFC has done. So that's saying something. It's definitely got a lot of attention, and rightfully so. But when I look at the top of this division right now, so if Dustin's next for Colby and Usman is going to wait for the winner of Chimaev and Burns, if Chimaev gets the win, how does Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman play out? Like what? Give me your way too early prediction on that, because that fight to me is fascinating. I feel like Chimaev is a super threat to anybody at 170 or at 185. I don't even know how he makes welterweight. The guy's huge.
Well, I'll say this. Chimaev is going to retire Kamaru Usman in that fight. Kamaru Usman is going to retire after Chimaev beats him, because he's already talking about retiring. and Chimaev is going to beat him. He's going to beat him. His wrestling. He will go. He'll be the first guy to really go in there and absolutely dominate Usman in the wrestling department.
Wow.
And he will possibly knock him out on the feet.
Wow, that's saying something right there, because this guy, Kamaru Usman, right now, they're rivaling with GSP for the all-time greatest welterweight that we've ever seen.
Right. And remember when they said the same thing about Tyron Woodley and GSP, as Tyron Woodley's the GOAT over GSP, and guess what happened? Kamaru Usman came in and mollywopped his ass.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting, and you know, it's people a lot of times just remember like the here and now. That it's easy to forget how great people were in their prime. And George St. Pierre, forget about those 2 losses to the Mats, Sarah and Hughes. He avenged both of them dominantly. George St. Pierre was special, all-time pound for pound greatest. He's on my Mount Rushmore of combat sport athletes. This guy is just exactly what you'd want your kids to look up to inside and outside of the cage. I can't say enough good things. My all-time favorite mixed martial artist, so I'm just gonna say that. But a lot of intriguing matchups right now, and it's so exciting. You know what is to come. Colby Covington is staying relevant. That win over Masvidal was enormous. I hope it's Poirier next. If it's not, you know, I'm not sure who makes sense at 170 for him. If it's not, you know, Usman or Burns, you know, Chimaev, like, I don't really know who else the UFC could match with him. If I'm Colby, I'm just kind of chilling. I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna wait for the money fights, for the right fight, because he's earned it. He's deserved it for a while now, and I feel like he's finally starting to get a little bit of that credit that it's been long overdue. We just need to get him in the top 15 in the pound for pounds. It's a joke that he's not.
Well, once he beats Dustin Poirier, he'll be right up there, because I feel like that's the only logical fight right now, because both guys don't have really any fights to fight within their own divisions, and it's a super fight. It's a money fight. It's one that's going to generate a lot of money. That is the way to go. Both guys are going to get mega paid. UFC gets mega paid. You get a big pay-per-view event, and you know the winner gets some bragging rights. The grudge match is over. And you know, one of them can now advance in their respective divisions after that. You know, I feel like that's the best way to go. But on the flip side, where does Masvidal go from here?
I don't know. I saw a report saying that, you know, Neil Magny would make a lot of sense for him for his next fight, but you know, Masvidal, and you know, I pause before I say this because I'm a fan of Masvidal too. I love his style. He's a tough fighter. He always brings it, but he's not going to be winning a championship anytime soon. Like, it is what it is. Like, I feel like he's 37 years old. He's almost 38. At this point of his career, he just needs to be making good money, putting on exciting fights for the fans. And that needs to be his MO, because he's not going to be competing for a title, and there's no way he could drop down to 55 and make that weight class. He's too big for it. So, you know, I don't know what's next for him. If I was him, I might take a little time away, because he's on a little bit of a skid now, and just, you know, really reevaluate where he's at in his career and make the right decision moving forward to look at things the right way. You know, he doesn't need to be fighting Usman and Covington again. It's not a good look for him. But you know, he needs to get back to his winning ways. That's the biggest thing. So maybe take a step back, fight some guys that, you know, aren't at the top of the division, rack up a couple more wins, get his confidence up, and you know, who knows what could happen in the future. We all know he's got that KO power. So he's a fan favorite. So he'll be around. There's no doubt about that. So I do want to ask you too. You know, RDA had that big win over Moicano in the co-main event. Do you feel like this is a guy that can make a run at a title? Because when you look at the top of the division at 55, it's just a bunch of absolute savages. And RDA, he's getting older. How impressed were you by his win last night?
I was impressed, but I also knew that was going to happen. I mean, that was the inevitable. I didn't think Moicano stood a chance in that fight. I mean, all the intangibles everything was against Moicano in that fight. Short notice, having to cut a ton of weight, no training camp against the toughest fighter in his career, and it's just everything was adding up. I think he would have done a lot better if he had a full camp. It was down at 155, not 160, because RDA was an absolute powerhouse. That dude was absolutely shredded at 160 pounds. And then Moicano looked like he was a little bit out of shape because he wasn't able to cut the full 155. So I wasn't thoroughly surprised that he went in there and absolutely smoked Moicano, because I was expecting that of him. I don't think we see a resurgence of RDA, because I do think Fiziev goes in there and starches him and beats him, because he's not going to be able to do what he did against Moicano to Fiziev. Fiziev has shown good takedown defense and is an absolute savage on the feet. So I think it was a much harder fight. I was taking Fiziev in that fight. But once I saw the switch up to Moicano, I was extremely heavy on RDA over Moicano. I just thought he was a lot better everywhere. And he showed he was a better grappler, he was a better striker, he was better everywhere. I just don't think RDA just going to have some type of late career resurgence at 155 pounds and make a title shot.
I completely agree with you. So it'd be interesting to see, if that Fiziev fight is rebooked here moving forward. Now, Bryce Mitchell, I think, shocked a lot of people. Both of us thought that Barboza was gonna win this fight. Maybe Bryce Mitchell is better than people think, right?
Oh, absolutely. He proved me wrong numerous times. I think I've bet against her too many times to count, and I can say I will stop doing that moving forward. I mean, he absolutely dominated Andre Fili. He dominated Edson Barboza, even on a long layoff, against arguably the best competitor he's ever faced. It's extremely impressive. The dude doesn't have these serious accolades either, like a D1 All-American athlete or an extreme high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's none of that. He's just a hard worker that's fought his ass off, skill for skill for his entire career, and he just overcame adversity in every fight. And he's been so dominant since being in the UFC. Even though he's not finishing anybody, he only got one submission, he's been dominant in his decision wins.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for him. And one of my favorite things of the night was, Bryce Mitchell was talking about wanting to donate his own money to this charity. Dana White said, no, hold on to your money. He personally, Dana White, was going to donate money to the charity that Bryce Mitchell wanted. So that's awesome. Dana White's a gazillionaire, so he can afford to do that. But very cool to see him step up and say that, because obviously, someone in his position that has the ability to donate and help people, I feel like should. So I was really cool. It was really cool to see that. And Bryce Mitchell, this is someone that we're going to keep our eyes on after this win over Barboza. Who do you feel like could be next for him?
Damn, I don't know. We're anybody in the top 10, who's in the top 10 that really be a great matchup. I don't know. Maybe a Giga Chikadze fight. I feel like that would be a good one.
Yep.
Be number 11 versus number, I think, 7 or 8. I think.
I'd also like to see him with Cater. That would be an interesting.
Yes, I was thinking about that as well. Cater's got a good wrestling background, great boxer, but Bryce Mitchell's on another level, man. I don't know, man. Once he gets into that top 10, we will see. Where Bryce Mitchell's gonna go. Is he a title contender? Once he cracks that top 10, once he fights somebody in that top 10, we'll know. Like if he goes in there and obliterates somebody like Giga Chikadze, he's a title contender for sure.
Yeah, interesting to see what's next for Thug Nasty. Now, Kevin Holland kind of got off to a slow start against Alex Oliveira, but ultimately comes back, gets the finish in the second round, a right hook to ground strikes. I think it was 38 seconds left in the round. Were you impressed by Kevin Hall in that 170, or did you feel like he didn't look as good as maybe you thought he would?
I thought he would look a little bit better, but he did exactly what I expected of him. I expected him to get the finish inside 2 rounds by knockout TKO. That was literally exactly how I felt that fight would go. But I thought he would be a little bit sharper in the first round. I feel like he was a little tentative. He was throwing too many leg kicks. He was just getting countered. He was just throwing naked leg kicks the entire time. Felt like he wasn't comfortable. But then he finally settled in the second round and really put it on him. I think he just needed to get through the first round of fighting at 170, and because these guys at 170 are a lot faster than the guys at 185. So I think he was dealing with the speed advantage that Oliveira had, and he wasn't able to time it correctly, him coming in and out and his movements. So once he was able to go back to his corner and assess a couple things, he made the right adjustments and was able to really just come forward and put it on Oliveira, and it was very impressive in that second round. But like I said, I just think it was a feeling out process in the first round. He hasn't fought at 170 in a bit. We know these guys at 170 are going to be a lot faster than him, a lot faster than the guys he's used to fighting at 185 pounds. So, but he knew that he could take the power of Oliveira. He's taken power at 185, and I knew his power at 185 will translate down to 170, and it really showed against Oliveira in that matchup.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Big fan of Kevin Hall, and excited to see, if he stays at 170 or if he jumps back and forth between the weight divisions. But in the end, a big win over a tough guy, in his welterweight debut here in the UFC. Now, Sergey Spivak, I think he made a lot of people happy finishing Greg Hardy, and I don't have to get into the specifics as to why. A lot of people don't like Greg Hardy for their reasons that make a lot of sense. But this was, I feel like, a minor upset, right? Because a lot of people, including us, were talking about just how big and strong Hardy is and how much weight he cuts. And, he's just going to have the strength advantage, and that's going to be a big difference. Well, no, sir. Like, Sergey Spivak put on a show and got him out of there quick. Like, I mean, very impressive. Like, this is someone that maybe the heavyweight division needs to pay attention to, right?
Possibly. I mean, I feel like he probably settled in as a top 10 heavyweight fighter, but I don't think he's going to have any title aspirations in his career at any given point. I mean, you're talking about a converted NFL lineman to MMA fighter that's beaten literally nobody in his MMA career and has lost to every half decent opponent he's ever faced. So you can't really put too much stock, because Greg Hardy is really not an MMA fighter. I mean, he's just huge, he's athletic, and he's got some power, but he doesn't have the background. He hasn't been doing this for a while, but it was impressive nonetheless, and everybody definitely was happy that he got it done. And we probably won't see Hardy ever again in the UFC, because it was his last fight on his contract. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I remember there was a reporter in the post-fight press conference that asked that question, and yeah, Dana White got a chuckle out of it, because I can't imagine they're going to re-sign him. I mean, maybe they will, but I could see Hardy going to Bellator and doing pretty well there. But I don't think that he's going to be someone that's going to be making any title runs for the UFC at any point in the future. But that kicked off the main card. The undercard was great too. I mean, when you just look at all the fights that happened on the undercard, was there one or two that stood out to you? I mean, I could tell you, I love Dustin Jacoby, so I was pumped to see him get that win. Yeah, that was a good one. And I was
excuse me.
Bless you. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was an impressive win, considering the man was injured going into that fight. He couldn't kick. You're talking about the very skilled kickboxer beat the boxer boxing. He couldn't kick him at all. And mind you, I bet a lot of money on Dustin Jacoby, and I'm like, why is he not kicking? I'm like, this is going to go bad for me if he's just going to stand there and start trading in the pocket. But, he came and he dogged him out for, the first round was not, wasn't pretty. But he dogged him in rounds 2 and 3, and he dug deep. And I was impressed, because being able to fight through adversity, not being able to use your best weapons and get the win against a very dangerous boxer pressure boxer, no less, and Olajaychik. It was definitely impressive.
Yeah, and I have an interview with Dustin Jacoby this coming Tuesday that will be here on Vegas Odds, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. Always love talking to him. Umar Nurmagomedov finishes Brian Kelleher in the first round. How good is this guy?
Oh, he's good. He's very good. I mean, title aspirations, Peter Yan versus Umar Nurmagomedov. We might see that in the coming future. This kid is the real deal. I mean, to do what he did against Kelleher was impressive. I mean, Kelleher is no slouch whatsoever. He doesn't normally get finished like that. I mean, Ricky Simone took him down numerous times, but he wasn't able to keep him there. He wasn't able to control him, really do any damage. Umar Nurmagomedov, he looked like his cousin Khabib all through and through. He got in there, absolutely dominated, took his back, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, that guy's scary. I really looking forward to seeing him fight some higher level competition. Not to take anything away from Brian Kelleher, but he's not a top 15 guy. I want to see Umar in there against top 10 opponents here moving forward, just to kind of get a gauge as to how legit he is, because I think he's pretty legit. What other fights on the undercard really stood out to you? I know that split decision, the heavyweight fight. Negermano, I can't even say his last name.
I think it's Negermano
and Juku. I was actually kind of disappointed by Kennedy because I felt like this is a guy that has so much talent. He's so good, and he lost a split decision here. But you got to tip your cap to Nick. I'm just going to say Nick because that's way easier than to say his last name. But was that a fight that you anticipated to play out the way that it did, or were you kind of in the same boat as me? Like, because I felt like Njuku should have won that fight.
I thought he should have won that fight. I thought it was not the greatest decision by the judges. But at the end of the day, Kennedy made it a closer fight than it should have been. He has the better intangibles than Nick as well, but he just didn't put it all together enough to really wow the judges and help it sway his way. But unfortunately, these judges just go by what they see. They don't always know every little aspect of the fight game, and it showed in that fight because I think Kennedy probably should have got the nod in the decision.
Yeah. Always love watching the heavyweights get in there and throw down. So that was a fight that I was really intrigued about. What else stood out to you, Garrett, on this undercard? Was there anything else that you felt like, really was should get a light shined on here for UFC 272? I mean, we talked about the main card, and obviously this is Colby Covington's night. He really looked amazing in the main event. But anything else that we're missing here on the 272 undercard?
I mean, you got to talk about Jalen Turner and how he's just finishing dudes. You talk about, I think that's his fourth straight finish after, having not some good success early in UFC career, but now he's got 4 straight finishes, and that's impressive. We're talking about a guy that now he's got some, he's got some legit talent, and he looks like he's the build. I mean, he's arguably one of the tallest lightweights on the roster, so he's extremely hard to deal with on the feet. And his jiu-jitsu has gotten much, much better over time. 2 of his last 4 wins have been by submission and 2 knockouts. So this dude can finish you on the feet. He can finish you on the mat. And he looks like a potential top 15, top 10 type of fighter.
No, I totally agree. Jalen Turner looked amazing over a tough guy in Jamie Mullarkey. Don't get it twisted. Jamie Mullarkey is legit. So for Turner to go out there and get the win and get the finish, tip of the cap to the tarantula there. But, all in all, UFC 272 really delivered. I mean, I was looking forward, especially to this main event, more than almost any fight for quite some time now. No apologies. I do like Colby Covington. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch compete. And so this fight with Masvidal, all that bad blood, I was hyped about. I was watching all the embeddeds, the countdown, and I was pleased that it actually went the distance. But all in all, a great night, and I'm looking forward to UFC Vegas 50 right around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be that's actually a pretty low-key good fight card. Headlined by Thiago Santos and Magomed Ankalaev. That's a pretty good fight card, top to bottom. Going from UFC 272 to that type of fight card, It's pretty good. And then after that, you got UFC London as well. So you got back great fights coming up.
Absolutely. Yeah, can't wait. But again, always great talking to you, Garrett. UFC 272 really delivered. Looking forward to getting back on and recapping some more shows here soon. But for all you out there watching, make sure you like and subscribe to the Vegas Odds YouTube channel. We'll have more videos just like this coming your way soon.